How we doing? How we doing? This is Destination Denver, Colorado, and today I've got a great one for you. You're considering it. Should I make the move from New York out west to Colorado? Well, I'm here to talk about everything you need to know about that masterful question. Should I leave New York for Colorado? Let's do it. All right, this is Destination Denver, Colorado. I am your host, Jimmy Everetts, and listen, if you're interested in all the ins and outs, pros and cons of moving to or around Denver, Colorado, then no doubt this is the channel for you. So make sure to click that subscribe button as well as the notification icon down below, as I'm dropping 2 videos for you each and every week. And listen, as much as I love having a little fun on camera and getting creative for you, I enjoy even more being a resource in any way, shape, or form I can. So the number and email popping up below, I'm always the person answering your phone calls, answering your texts, answering your emails, there when and if you need me. Now that we have all that fun-filled stuff out of the way, let's get to what we're here for, and that's the discussion. The question at hand, should I move from New York to Colorado? Now, to give you a little backstory on myself, I lived in New York for several years. Still have a lot of friends, family out there. Made the move back to, I was born in Colorado, raised in Colorado, came back here. So I have a little feel for it. But let's be honest, if you're considering leaving New York for Colorado or anywhere else, a lot of this conversation is going to depend on whether or not you are coming from the city. Are you an island kid? Or are you in the boroughs? Are you upstate? Are you Southern Canadian? Busting your stones a little bit there. So we'll try to kind of cover how different that change may be for you, understanding full well that someone moving from Manhattan or Brooklyn is going to be a little different from somebody moving from Albany or Rochester or Buffalo. So the first thing I'm going to talk about as far as moving to Colorado is your cost of living. And I think that's going to be pretty obvious for someone in New York when you go to move anywhere. Chances are, if you're anywhere near the city, there's not a lot of places you're going to think about moving to in which your cost of living is actually going to go up. Your jobs will tend to pay more unless you're moving remotely or something of that nature. It wouldn't be shocking if your job pays the same or less, moving to Colorado, but in return, you're also paying less for living. Chances are your housing expense, whether you're buying or renting, is going to be lower. Your price for goods and services and things like that. And again, I'm talking about somebody living near the city. As you get farther out of the city, as you get upstate, odds are that's gonna level off. And there are parts of New York where I'm quite certain Denver is going to be more expensive. So that's just kind of that dynamic depending on where you're moving here from. Now, the nice thing is maybe you're just over the hustle and bustle of New York. You wanna come out here, you find whether it's a good paying job or a job that's going to fit the bill. There's a big aspect in Denver as far as employers who understand a little work-life balance. And I think that anybody living near the city, if you're in one of the boroughs, you understand that quality of life can be challenging. Obviously, if you're not making great money in New York, you might be working multiple jobs. You might be in an apartment or a house that you're not thrilled with. And so I think that first big thing when you're coming out to Colorado is finding that work-life balance and starting to enjoy yourself a little bit. When I'm talking about how you might not make as much money moving from a position in New York to Denver, obviously that's arbitrary, right? I mean, you could find a job that pays just as much. But when you talk about how much money you're actually going to keep and take home, one thing I would throw at you is that New York, as I'm sure you are aware of, living there has multiple levels of state income tax, right? Ranges from as low as 4% up to 9.5% if you're Jay-Z. Now, out in Colorado, we have a flat state income tax rate, 4.63%. So no matter what you make, that's what you're gonna pay as far as income tax. So overall, that's gonna help you keep a little more money in your pocket. Still not as good maybe as a state that doesn't have any state income tax at all, but what I found is that the government finds a way to get their money one way or another. So there you got that going for you. Another key factor as we're talking about taxes is property taxes. So let's say you own a place out in New York and your objective is to buy a place out in Colorado, Or maybe you're just thinking about buying your first house in Colorado. So again, as you're either aware of or not, and especially around the city, New York property taxes can go anywhere from a little over 2% up to 3-4%. I got buddies who have houses out on Long Island that they bought for $600,000 and they're paying $18,000, $19,000, $20,000 a year for just property taxes. $1,500 a month for property taxes. Insanity. As again, you get to certain areas, you go upstate, that changes a little bit. But here in Denver, just on average, the average property tax bill here in Colorado is a 0.5 percentage point. So for that same $600,000 price point I'm talking about in New York, you're paying about $3,000 a month. $3,000 compared to $18,000. Now there's some communities, I've helped some people buy homes out here, and in newer communities, you might see higher property taxes, a little over 1%, but you're still not paying the obscene property tax bills that you're paying out of New York. And at the same time, and again, we're gonna kind of take this a little differently for the upstate folks, or if you're kind of out in the country and not necessarily in a city, but your rent situation, by and large, in my opinion, is going to improve coming out to Denver. The rent by Denver standards is pretty expensive, but the rent compared to what I'm certain you are used to, certainly if you're living in Manhattan, and if you're living in any of the boroughs in which you're in a decent to somewhat decent neighborhood, you're going to like what you pay for rent out here, and you're really going to like what you get for your rent out here. As I recall, my last apartment in the Bronx was an illegal basement apartment, had one of the letters instead of a number. And I remember I had this nice little prison window action going on. So I could see like garden level, I could see people's feet walk by. That was about it. I could see maybe shin high. It was wonderful. Those apartments don't exist in Denver. Instead, you get a nice garden level window for the same price in which you actually see life, and light comes into your apartment. And it's incredible what happens when you actually get some sunshine into your apartment if you're a renter. As you can already tell, I know how to ramble like a New Yorker. Let's go. So, we obviously know there's going to be some income differences. There's going to be some tax implications. Now let's just talk about some lifestyle and really have a conversation about it. I'm here to give you a quick bit of bad news that you're, again, probably already aware of. When you move outside of New York, everywhere else, the food sucks. I wish I could say it nicer. I wish I could tell you that Denver has done better, and they have, but I don't know. The food is just not going to be as good as you are used to. I can't find good Italian to save my life. They have, okay, but by New York standards, not much. Now, everybody outside of New York likes to blame the water for the fact that they can't make good pasta or good pizza. I don't know if it's BS. I don't know who made up this lie, this conspiracy theory, but apparently the water makes the bread and the pasta, and I shouldn't say the pasta, but the bread, which then as far as pizza, no go. So make sure you get a nice slice before you leave the city if you're moving out here. At the same time, things like Mexican food are gonna blow your mind, because I know if you're living in the Bronx right now, your idea of Mexican food is probably Taco Bell. You're gonna come out here, you're gonna have like some Tex-Mex action going on, get some green chili in your gullet, woo, change your life. Now you would think I would have put food lower on the list, but I know how you people like to eat. I'm gonna skip from food right to these things called the Rocky Mountains. Now one of my favorite things about having my friends come out from New York to Denver, especially when they have never been out west, is the first time they see the Rocky Mountains. So when you get to Denver, and probably to backtrack, one of the funniest things is that when you actually fly into Denver and you land at Denver International Airport, you don't see the mountains. I mean, you can from maybe your window a little bit, but because you're looking north and south, because you're flying west, you don't see them. You land at the airport, I have so many people who are like, man, you don't see any mountains. That John Denver's full of shit, man. But then when you drive into Denver and you see them stacked completely as far as the eye can see, north to south, that entire western slope, nothing like it. And the first time you drive out of the city on I-70, you head up into the mountains, my friends, their minds are blown. And obviously a lot of aspects of our life as far as those mountains, it's gonna be a key to you being here. I'm gonna talk a little bit more about that as I go, but obviously a big pro. I know as you get upstate New York, I know you got some mountains, AKA hills, but point being, wait till you see these. So when you're seeing these mountains and you're driving through them, enjoying them, the other thing that's going to play a nice little aspect in you falling in love with this state is the fact that while you're doing it, chances are you're going to see blue skies and sunshine. So Denver gets, and people will tell you this ad nauseum, an average of 300 days of sunshine a year. Now, if New York is still the New York that I lived in, it's been gray there since mid-September with rare bits of sunshine. You upstate folk, you probably don't even know what the sun looks like. It's this big yellow ball. It lets out like heat and stuff, and you can get a sunburn if you're out in it for hours. Well, here in Denver, the sun's out all the time, and if you're out in it, even in the middle of winter, after like 30 minutes, you'll get a burn. So you'll see sunshine, you'll see blue skies, it'll make you want to be outdoors. Whether you're driving through the mountains in the middle of summer, spring, winter, we haven't gotten any snow yet. That's a little weird, but who knew that you would expect snow in December? But get ready for it. It makes you want to be outside. And if there's one thing, among others, that I don't miss about New York is that it doesn't necessarily make you want to get outside all the time, whether the weather is gray and cloudy or whether it's just smoking hot, steamy with humidity. Denver, you don't have that. The weather kicks. Now in this, I kind of like to bounce all over the place. The guy actually editing this video right now is probably ready to punch me because I'm not giving him numbers, I'm not giving him points, I'm just rambling. So as you're driving up to the mountains, get ready to bitch about the drivers out here. It's not their fault. They just weren't taught. It's been a mix and match. We've got like people coming out here from California and Texas and New Mexico, but people from Colorado themselves, they don't really know how to drive. They don't really know how to merge. They don't know how to move around with traffic. So traffic isn't bad here compared to what you are probably used to. Again, especially if you are closer to the city or a city, but the city, let's go. But they don't know how to merge. They don't know how to use their horn. They really don't know how to do the speed limit or hopefully above the speed limit. As far as like getting on and off a ramp or stuff like that, and they're just not aggressive to our standards. So just be aware of that. Beware that Betty is going to be driving her car, knuckles. All you can see is like knuckles in the top of her head like this as she drives down the road, doing like this speed limit, a couple miles below it, and it's going to drive you bonkers. You might like just roll up your windows, throw a little temper tantrum, and I mean, if you want to go full blown on them, you know, you want to give them some heat, that's fine. You can. Just don't do it in Boulder. Random pro tip, off the top of the cuff, write that down. You can flip out anywhere. Don't do it in Boulder because it's like hippies, and if you blow your horn in Boulder, people lose their mind. Now listen, as you're making this move, I would think part of why you're making this move is going to be quality of life. I don't think that you're moving to Colorado because you just randomly want to ruin your life and you think Colorado will suck. So quality of life is a big aspect of living in Colorado and living near Denver. So it's a very active state. When I first moved back here, I was really a city kid. I didn't like going up to the mountains. I didn't like going hiking and biking. I didn't like camping. I didn't like any of that crap. I was the quintessential, you know, let's go out to the nightclub, let's have some drinks, let's talk to some ladies, all of that stuff. The longer you're here, or even for that matter, I should add, like going down to the park and playing some volleyball or whatnot. As I've been here longer, this state just it drags you into these outdoor activities. Over the years now, the places you can see, the hikes you can go on, skiing or snowboarding. If you're into winter sports, obviously it's I should say nearly unmatched. Colorado's incredible for that. That's a no duh. And you know, a lot of that again is going to dictate like where are you coming from? Are you coming from the boroughs? Are you coming from Manhattan where you're used to, you know, skyscrapers and walking all of the time and being around a ton of people and dealing with hours and hours of parking? Or are you coming from a rural area, or you little upstate where things are a bit calmer, where you're used to bigger pieces of property and things like that? So, you know, leaning towards this conversation being more city oriented, just be prepared as you get out here that you're so close to outdoor activities all the time. You're always close to the mountains. Even if you're living on the east side of Denver, farthest away from the mountains, you can still get there in, call it 40, 45 minutes, and you're in mountains between cliffs. You're close to, there's not a lot of water here. That's one of my random tangents. And as I continue to ramble, we got to talk about dating, because you're coming out to Denver or coming out to Colorado. Maybe you're with somebody, maybe you're not. But dating, it just kind of depends what you're into. Denver has a pretty diverse population. There's a little bit of everything for everybody. You know, as a guy who came out here to meet some ladies, I'll tell you, in New York, my experience, you go to a bar, you buy a lady a drink, something like that, and she might take that drink and then tell you, get lost. Here in Denver, they might have like a 30-minute conversation with you after you buy that drink, and then they tell you to get lost. So you get a little more polite. And then I'm gonna end it with some talk about sports teams. So you're coming out here, now I'm not expecting you to suddenly not be a Buffalo Bills fan or a Giants fan, and maybe you're into baseball, whatever. I'm just ramble of sports teams. So if you're into football, the Broncos Stadium, Mile High Stadium, it's right in the heart of Denver. I'll say this, it's a hell of a lot of fun to go to a Broncos game in comparison, my humble opinion, to going to a Giants or Jets game at the Meadowlands. Because, I mean, if you've gone a lot, you know it sucks getting in and out of that stadium. No vibe about it. This stadium, convenient as hell. As far as baseball, listen, Yankees fans, I don't expect you to come out here and become a Rockies fan. The team is terrible. But if you're a Mets fan, it's like an even trade, bro. Just get down with the Rockies. They win about as many games. I know, you're like, this testado. And then you've got hockey, you got the Colorado Avalanche, you got the Denver Nuggets. They play at Ball Arena, again, right downtown, pretty convenient. Not that it's tough to get to Barclays Center out in Brooklyn, or, you know, get down to, and there's nothing like getting down to Manhattan and going to the Garden. Even though the Knicks suck, but I mean, just we deal. And listen, if you can't take a ball busting about your sports teams, I mean, obviously you're not going to call me. So what are we even talking about here? All right, so let's rehash my randomness. You're thinking about moving from New York to Colorado. We've talked about your income tax, state income tax isn't going to be as bad. Chances are, even if your pay is a little lower, quality of life goes up, cost of living here is lower. So overall, if you move from New York to Colorado and you don't have as much money in your pocket at the end of the day, you took a bad job. I wish I could give you better guidance in that, but chances are you okay? If you buy a house, more of the money that you pay every month on that house is going to go towards your mortgage, as opposed to the state government taking $18,000 a year and trying to tell you that it's for school systems. What are you teaching your kids out in New York that they're not teaching them anywhere else? $18,000 for schools. If you rent, you're not going to be in an apartment with a little cell block window. That was me. That was me looking out of my window at people's shins. And obviously, as far as your speed and your pace of life, if you're near the city, it's going to be pretty chill out here. If you're from upstate, if you're from the country and in New York, then you're used to it. You're used to chill. We know you're going to love the mountains. You're going to love driving through them. But you're also going to love talking smack about the people that don't know how to drive very well going through them. And while traffic isn't as bad as where you're from, you're still going to be annoyed at the fact that there's traffic here at all when they really should ignore it. One thing I just love to add there, the roads here are hilarious. They're not quite as beat up as some that you're used to back home, but they have some interesting road structure issues, some potholes. But I would hope one of the key reasons you're thinking about moving from New York to Colorado, you're going to see a lot of sun. You're going to want to get outside. People are going to drag you to do terrible things like hiking or camping or just being outside with your friends, playing volleyball or softball, having a drink, being on what little bit of water we have here, because there's not as much, because you guys are near the ocean or on the ocean, and we are clearly not. You're going to enjoy it while the sun is out, and the sun is out all the time, so you're going to enjoy it, again, on average, 300 times a year. And you're going to complain about how bad dating is in Denver while you're sitting at a Rockies game watching them lose to the Yankees or watch them win against the Mets. So that, in my opinion, is what you need to know if you're asking the question, should I leave New York for Colorado? You want to debate it, you want to argue it, here's your opportunity, because that number and email popping up below, I'm always the person answering phone calls, answering the texts, answering your emails, debating you about Yankees and Mets, telling you that they suck. I mean, I love the Knicks. This is Destination Denver, Colorado. I am Jimmy Everetts. I'm glad you put up with my stuff because it's one of my favorite videos. Love seeing my New Yorkers come out here. Until next time, peace.